I'm going to show you how to make a really easy vegetarian curry. It's one of the things I eat regularly, not only because it's easy and budget friendly, but also because it's very healthy. You might have heard of the campaign the government has been supporting for numerous years, the 5 a day campaign, which encourages people to eat 5 portions of fruit and veg a day. Now, last year, the Imperial College actually released a study confirming that 5 a day was good, but if you really wanted to fight disease and ward off all kinds of chronic pains and illnesses, 10 a day, 10 portions of fruit and veg a day was probably even better. Now, I eat a lot of vegetables, and even I sometimes struggle to manage 10 portions a day, which is why a vegetarian curry or a vegetarian stir fry is really super, because it means you get at least 5 to 6 portions in with that meal. Let's get started. As many recipes, the first step is to sweat some chopped onions. I've already done that for us. I'm just going to add it to my medium hot pan with a good pinch of salt. Now, while that's sweating down, I'm going to just show you how to grate an apple. This curry has a little bit of sweetness added through grated apple. It's a very South African thing, actually. We have a wonderful mixture of cuisines in South Africa, and one of them that I love is the Cape Malay cuisine from Malaysia. And they are very well known for adding sweet things or fruit with savory dishes. So for example, we'll have curries with apricots. It balances out the flavors a bit better. So I'm just going to let that sweat while we grate our apple. I've already washed my apple, and I'm actually going to leave it peeled because I don't mind the peel in my dish, and actually the peel of the apple, as long as it's organic and unsprayed, contains a lot of nutrients. So let's give it I'm going to use the big hole. Let's give it a grate. Be very careful not to grate your fingers. It's very unpleasant. As you can see, the smaller the apple gets, I'm going to use a flat hand rather than holding it with my fingers sticking out. There you go. I think that's the safest, the furthest I can go safely. Be sure to always scrape out the inside of your box grater, as there will be a lot of goodness there as well. And this is ready to be added when the onions are nice and soft. Now in this curry, we've got a lot of different flavors. We've got a bit of curry powder. I'm using a mild one, but you can use a spicy one as well. We've got ground cumin, ground coriander, turmeric. We have some ground ginger. You could have grated in some fresh ginger. That's also delicious. And if you want to, some added chili powder to give it a nice bit of kick. Right, we're going to add our chopped garlic. And the apple is next. Right, the apple is cooking nicely, softening. It will probably end up becoming so soft that you don't notice the distinct pieces of apple. It will just melt into the sauce. The next thing we're going to add is our mixture of spices. I wish you could smell it, it's really delicious. Now, often in Indian cuisine or when making curries, you would try to either dry fry the spices, the whole spices, and then grind them up, because the heating of the spice actually makes the flavor more pronounced. It's called blooming the spices. You can do this either in a dry pan, or if you're going to leave the spices in your pot, you can start with a bit of oil and add your spices. Because I'm using brown spices, I can't do that, but if you were to use whole spices, that's a good way to start. It's always by frying your spices first. Right, that looks really good. We're going to add our cauliflower. Now, as you can see, I've separated them into florets. I might not use all of it. It was a very large cauliflower. Let me just show you if I can find a biggish piece. Have a look here. The easiest way to separate cauliflower or broccoli into florets is actually not by chopping them up, because it it ends up chopping them in places where they don't naturally make a floret. So the easiest way is to maybe cut it into 4 large pieces and then just take the flowers, and just pull them apart like that. Can you see? It's actually really easy. And if you need a bit of help on the stem, you can do that. But I found that pulling them apart is often a lot easier than trying to chop them into equal pieces. Right, I think we can add a little bit more. There you go. Now, the nice thing about a vegetarian curry is that things like broccoli, cauliflower, aubergine, they really absorb all the flavors. So you'll find that it's very tasty and very flavorsome by the end of it. We're going to add our tinned chopped tomatoes and also a whole tin of coconut milk. Now, this is not the coconut milk that you put in your tea. This is the full fat version, and don't be tempted to use a low fat version because you do actually need the fat in your dish to give it, first of all, that nice mouthfeel, but also to keep you full, seeing as it is a vegetarian dish. I tend to look for coconut milk that doesn't have any additives or any preservatives. They also sometimes use thickeners to ensure that the coconut milk doesn't separate in the tin, but all of that isn't necessary. Find one that is purely coconut cream or coconut milk, and even if it separates, that's fine, because once you add it to the cooking process, it will melt. As you can see, this is the fat part that has separated from the liquid, the more milky part. I'm just going to stir that in. With the heat, it will melt and make a delicious sauce. Now we're going to bring that up to a boil and then let that simmer for about 20 minutes until the cauliflower is nice and soft. After that, we're going to add our mange tout, or our sugar snaps in this case, and some chickpeas. When you make vegetarian meals, always be very conscious of the fact that you need to add protein in some form, whether it's nuts or pulses or beans, maybe tofu. It's very important that you have a balanced meal and not just have vegetable. It might keep you full, but it won't keep you full for a long time because you don't have the protein component. For a balanced meal, you always want a good collection or good balance between carbohydrates, fat and protein. And as a rule of thumb, I would say you want about 1/3 of your calories from each of those components. So about 1/3 of your energy comes from the protein, 1/3 of the energy comes from your carbohydrates, or maybe slightly more, and then 1/3 comes from your fat. Now remember, that doesn't mean that 1/3 of what's on your plate is fat, because fat is much more calorific. So you only need a small amount of fat to give you the same amount of energy or calories. And if you start thinking about your food in that way, it's a lot easier to balance your meals. Great, I'm going to put the lid on now so we can bring this to a proper boil. And then when this is ready, we're just going to finish it off with a little bit more salt and pepper if it needs it, some chopped coriander, and then the rest of the veg. So this is our lovely cauliflower curry after about 20 minutes worth of simmering. At this point, I'm going to add my chickpeas and the sugar snaps, stir them in, and then just let it boil for about a minute. If your sauce at this point is still quite thin, you could just boil it down a little bit further without the lid at a high temperature, but then maybe don't add your sugar snaps yet. I'm just going to wait for those sugar snaps to turn bright green and for the chickpeas to heat it through, and then we're done. Ready to be served with some naan or rice, or maybe dosas if you can get your hand on those, and some chopped coriander. There you go, and like any curry recipe, this benefits from standing overnight as the flavors really do intensify. So maybe have a little bit today and have the rest tomorrow.